That's the gimmick. Time for another sort of social study psychology thing. I'm going to talk about, did I actually learn anything while being into fragrances? What did I learn as like a human being? Because I think when you get into a hobby or into any sort of community, and I was never really super deep into the fragrance community, but you get more interactions with more people and you get to learn more about the world and yourself. And I did a vlog about this before of what did I learn about video games and the stereotypes you have when you get into the video games maybe, or when you see video games is of course that maybe it's always the most nerdy or the best people in video games are probably the very, I think in media it's the cliche Asian kid, pimples or something like that. But when I got into video games, of course I saw that often the most nerdy people were often quite bad at video games actually. So what kind of stereotypes did I have coming into the fragrance community? God, I mean, again, I use that term slightly, I guess. And was anything true? Well, first of all, something I've always talked about, a lot of people get into fragrances because of compliments. And my opinion on compliments has been for a long time now. If you want a fragrance that gets compliments, most things are capable of getting compliments. It's actually much more interesting what doesn't get compliments in my experience. Most things in general, within reason, get compliments. I would always say that pick your favorite YouTube dude, your favorite reviewer. Maybe he's me. Probably not, right? Probably not me, dude. But pick whoever your favorite fragrance reviewer is, and look at their top 10 and just pick a few out of those that you like, right? I mean, it could be their number 1 and their number 7 and their number 8, whatever number it is. Just pick a few you like, because in my experience, there's probably not a big drastic difference between someone's number 1 and their number 10. I've gotten compliments on tons of stuff that people say don't really get compliments, you know what I mean? So from that perspective as well, I think that too, you don't want to just wear something that you feel like you have to get the compliment to feel good, especially I guess if your whole thing is for going out and you're trying to bang chicks or whatever the hell you're trying to do, I guess, if that's your motif, your motive, whatever, I guess, right? You don't want to feel that you have to get that compliment to get you in the mood. I know that's something I said before. A cliche example is Aventus, right? I've gotten a lot of compliments on Aventus. I do agree more guys like it than girls, but at some point it's just like, you know what? Aventus isn't really me, and I don't want to feel like if I were trying to go get girls or trying to smell good for someone, I don't want to feel like I need that validation. Be like, dude, hey Clayton, thumbs up. You know that one picture of the cat with the thumbs up, that meme? That was me trying to do that right there. Oh hey, good job, bro. You smell good today. It's like, oh sweet, now I can go get a girl, right? If you didn't say that, I wouldn't have been able to do it, dude, right? So that's not a good that's why I say, don't get something you don't like, right? You know what I mean? I'm sure there's something within reason that gets compliments that you also like, and you'll also feel good because you're like, damn, I smell good. I feel good that I smell good, right? You know what I mean? So that's my opinion on compliments. It's always much more interesting, I think, what doesn't get compliments, right? Cough, Millesime Imperial. I've barely ever gotten compliments on that, right? Just ew. It's very, very fucking rare. Another stereotype in fragrances is that I think because, admittedly, fragrances are a pretty petty hobby. I don't think anyone would totally deny that, right? Again, getting into any hobby potentially makes you a better person because you get to have more experiences with other people, right? More social interactions, right? But there's probably a stereotype and a stigma, and I do believe it's true, that maybe a lot of people that are into fragrances because it's a petty hobby are probably potentially rich, snobby, stuck up. I would say that is true. I think that is pretty true. But I guess in defense of that, I think if you get into any hobby, you're going to meet a lot of different people from different walks of life. I've said before in the video game thing, you know what I mean? When I got into the video game community, you meet people from all different walks of life because you realize that not just nerds like video games. And that's one of the, backlashes of video games nowadays when I get into that kind of subject of, you know, they're trying to make video games a math problem to actually try to make the nerd actually good at video games. You know, I've gotten to meet, yeah, you know, people that are very well off from video games, people that are poor from video games. You know, one of the things, I don't want to get into, you know, you meet a lot of different people from different walks of life. So, of course, getting into fragrances, you meet a lot of different people from different walks of life. And I certainly have met many cliche, kind of snobby, rich sort of people, definitely. But I've met, you know, nice people, kind people. I mean, I guess if people want, because they want to hear stories, because it makes it more interesting, right? You know, I told the story, I think it was at Neiman Marcus or something like that, and you know, I was just talking to this girl or something, and she was, we were just talking about, oh, what fragrances do you like, blah, 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 right? And she just started like, boom, 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 boom. She started like naming off the entire store. And I was like, dude, time out. Do you really like all of these? And, you know, she was like, oh, no. I actually don't even wear fragrances. I just collect the bottles. And she's had like the entire store, but she says she's never actually worn a fragrance. She just, that kind of rich people, you know what I mean? Like, oh boy, you just, she just spent like $20,000 on fragrances or some bullshit, whatever she said. And she'd never even worn anything, whatever it was, dude. It's just like, wow, dude, just doesn't matter, dude. Here, take my money, right? You know, and I definitely have, I've gotten some, somewhere between the line of being weird and uncalled for and inappropriate messages from other fragrance reviewers. We could call them that. Somewhere between the line of being weird and inappropriate, I guess. You know, I've definitely had my fair share of and a terrible story I can tell you. And it's crazy because I'm not even, you know, big into the fragrance community. At least when I was when quotation marks, right? You know, I play video games very casually, but at least if you go off the perspective of all the weird people and insane situations I've had in video games, from a certain perspective, you think I've met all these weird people and I've had these insane actual hate campaigns against me. But from a certain perspective, I guess you could say I used to win video game tournaments while sick. You know, I did a lot in video games for years and years. I've done stuff that no one else in the world has done over and over and over again, right? You know what I mean? So despite my channel not being very big, if you consider all my accomplishments, you can perhaps see a perspective of why it is not big, because there have been such extreme hate campaigns against me. But even as small as I've been into the fragrance community, I have definitely met a lot of pretty weird people. I know there was one guy, he was basically, you know, he had friended me on Facebook and he was trying to pretend to be my friend. And the long story short was that he had started, you know, kind of commenting weird things on my statuses and pictures. And again, long story short, basically, he had friended me in hopes that he was going to expose me, because he thought he was going to be able to expose that I faked being sick, apparently, in his mind. And all the stories, I guess, basically he's a fucking stalker, I guess. You know, a Looney Tune. And he basically had eventually started saying that I'd faked everything, right? And so eventually I was like, you know what, dude, I friended you. I've tried to be nice to you, but I've been seeing these kind of weird comments on my shit a lot lately. Here's my medical record. What the fuck do you want from me, dude? And he was like, oh shit, sorry. He's like, okay, actually, I had thought that you'd been faking it this whole time and I was going to expose you, but dude, I actually have some of the same shit you have. And, you know, I'm rich, or I know these rich doctors or whatever. And you know what, dude, now I want to help you. I'm going to have my doctors help you now. Do you want to talk to them? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, you're a fucking psycho, dude. And I don't care if you fucking die from this or anything, dude. I'm like, you're telling me you've tried to pretend to be my friend this whole time because you were going to expose me or some shit because you thought I was lying because I had some disease that you had or some shit. And you said, oh, I couldn't possibly have something you have. Clayton couldn't possibly be sick. But so again, who knows what the fuck happened to that dude? Maybe he's dead somewhere. Good riddance as far as I'm concerned. Fucking Looney Tune. But the point of that story is, even as much as I've been into the fragrance community, which is not very much, right? In the grand scheme of things, I have met a lot of weird people, just like I've met in the video game community. And I've met some good people too, I think. Suspicious stare, but, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say there is the stereotype that there's a lot of rich, snobby people, whatever, maybe in fragrances, is probably true. But I think when you get into any community, you're going to meet different walks of life for better or worse, right? And I guess another stereotype from fragrances, I would say that for the Pokemon collector or the person like, I got to smell them all, would be that I think there's definitely a point of diminishing returns when you get into a hobby, right? There's a point of where it really does become a niche, right? Even in terms of social proof. Actually, I should say, I have one more thing after this to say, actually, but, and what I mean by that is, if you get into a hobby and, excuse me, maybe you're talking to someone and it's like, oh shit, you're into fragrances or something like that. And you're like, oh, I'm into fragrances too. And, like, oh, you like that too. It's like, oh, so this person has some knowledge about it. There's some common ground, right? But at some point, I see fragrance reviewers, they have 1,000 bottles, whatever the fuck it is, right? At some point, it's kind of like, you know what? There's a point of diminishing returns the more fragrances you smell. The point is, say, if you went to some girl, hot babe number 57, 62, 31, where the fuck she is, 5,000, bajillion, whatever. The chances of her going to you being like, wow, Clayton, I wasn't going to bang you, dude, but when you said you'd smelled 1,001 fragrances instead of 1,000, that's when I knew you were just so much more interesting, right? So what I'm trying to get is it becomes a point of diminishing returns, you know what I mean? So if you're getting into fragrance, be like, oh man, I got to spend my money to smell this. I got to smell this. I got to say I smell this. It's kind of like, again, a point of diminishing returns, you know what I mean? It's like the niche you're getting to that kind of like demographic of who cares about just that much, it's going to keep getting less and less, you know what I mean? So, I guess that's probably not a very kind of like motivating conversation. Again, it's a real conversation, just trying to get into at some point it's got to be like, you know what, dude, I've smelled a lot of stuff, and that's what I've told myself a lot. That's why I got to be an adult. It's expensive just sampling half the time. I'm not getting a bunch of free bottles from companies I don't give good enough reviews to, right? I actually have been messaged by companies and perfumers before. And the point is, it's just kind of like, you know what? I've smelled a lot of fragrances. I know, because maybe I just don't care enough, but I'm never going to be as amazing as some of these other dudes. But you know what? I've smelled enough fragrances that it's been something in my life that's like, oh, it's kind of interesting. If someone asks me, it's a hobby. You know what I mean? And I've smelled more than any normal person ever has to smell, right? And I don't have to, to get even further, that niche, the demographic of social proof and bettering me as a person is so, the value of diminishing returns is so small. It just is it really worth it? So hopefully you got what I'm saying. I mean, those are some stereotypes. I made a vlog before talking about what I learned being in the video game community. That's what I learned about the fragrance community. Again, compliments, they are what they are. Again, I feel like that's why sometimes people get mad because I'm not so black and white. I don't hate this. I don't love this because I'm too chill or too chill. I don't know what to say. I'm too kind of, it's just kind of like, it is what it is, dude. It's a hobby, it's life. Not everything is amazing. Not everything totally fucking sucks. It's just my opinion. That's my opinion on the fragrance community and fragrances in general. Hopefully you got kind of what I was trying to say at the end.